So, formally, I'd like to welcome everybody. My name is Ryan McCarthy. I uh, have been sitting for about 15 years now, and while I am not a official certified Dharma teacher, I have been sitting a long time with very difficult things. I've had a lot of difficult things that I've had to deal with personally. Through my work, through doing aid work, through doing education in a lot of frontline communities, a lot of very heavily impacted communities by poverty and violence. I've sat with people going through very difficult things in China, in the Middle East, in Central America, and in several places here in the States. And there's no skill, there is no tool that I've found that has been more useful than this. The ability to sit, the ability to center yourself, the ability to detach to some degree or to create a little separation or space internally between what you're experiencing and what you think about that experience, what the mind tells you you should do or you shouldn't do, or you should react or you shouldn't react. A lot of judgments, a lot of expectations, a lot of disappointment comes from the mind, not from necessarily the thing itself. What the Buddha taught, and again, just for context, I do not personally identify as religious. I do not personally identify as a Buddhist in the religious sense, but I think that Siddhartha Gautama, the individual that started a lot of this path 2,600 years ago, was a just extremely wise and bright light in the world, and really saw things with a lot of clarity that even 2.5 millennia later are still very, very prescient, very accurate, and very useful to our experience today. So that's where I come from in my practice, coming from a place of when I was younger, really having a lot of trauma and a lot of pain and a lot of anger, that I was really looking for different skill sets or methodologies uh, to to relate with, but also not coming from a religious standpoint. So if that's something that is sticky for you, that I share that, and and yeah, the practice is really about yourself, is really fundamentally, can we listen and can we just let things be? So I wanted to give a little bit of an overview of my understanding of mindfulness. And I think uh, what's useful in that regard is to say what mindfulness is and what mindfulness isn't. And before I start with that, I'd invite you, as you're listening now, to, if you haven't already, get into a comfortable position that you can kind of settle into over the next hour. As much as possible, if you can close any doors around you, or limit anything that might distract you or take your attention away. Make sure you've put your phone off. Make sure, yeah, you're silencing your computer speakers, or I guess you can't do that, but turning off any notification sounds. And also with a big concept is what I call non-binary thinking, meaning usually things aren't off or on or one way or the other. It's uh, an infinite number of gradients in between two polarities. So if you find yourself making statements like, I can't do this, I can't concentrate, I'm terrible at this, or this is lame, or whatever it is, there's usually a range there. And I just invite you to be soft with yourself. There's no way to do this wrong. So what mindfulness is to me is being able to pay attention, being able to listen, being able to settle. And so what mindfulness is not is uh, being calm. You can be mindful when you're not calm. It doesn't mean being happy. It doesn't mean being peaceful or content or floating around on a cloud everywhere. We can be present with whatever we're experiencing and wherever we are and whatever is happening. And that's our goal today, is we're going to try and just sink into our experience a little, to the somatic experience of our body. of our breath, which are really good resting points for the attention because they're stable. The breath is always happening, always there. We always have it with us. And so even if we feel a million different things, or we're in a place that feels very chaotic or fast moving, we can always connect with the breath and with the physical experience we're having, with the somatic experience of the body. And so I'd invite you to, for the next hour, let everything be okay. Whatever happens, whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're thinking or feeling or going through, or whatever's happening around you, we're going to practice dropping in to just letting that be. What I call the first paradox of the Dharma is, how much do we be present with and accept what is happening? And how much do we need to fix it? Do we need to change? Do we need to do something? And those are, again, always to degrees. Uh, but I think a really beautiful part of this practice is being able to just settle in and accept what is happening. Or, as it is said, right now, it's like this. It's a really, really powerful phrase to tell yourself. Right now, it's like this. And I can just let it be. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to change it. I can just practice accepting. And so we're going to do, to start with, something called a body scan, or something that I call an instant vacation. I do this a lot with high trauma youth. I work with a lot of teachers that are dealing with youth that have um, very serious mental or emotional or environmental challenges. And I call it an instant vacation because whatever is happening around you, you have a place inside of yourself that is very calm and very stable and very settled. And we're going to practice accessing that place now. And the more we access it, the easier it is to get to, the faster we can go there, the more we can sink in when we get there. So whether you've been practicing for many years or whether you don't have much practice, this is a really skillful thing to do. And at the end, I'll just put now in the chat. You don't have to look at it, but just in case anybody has to leave, I'm going to put our website, which is kindus.org. The Global Kindness Initiative is my organization. And on our resources page, we have an instant vacation printout. So if you're on your own, or if you're sharing this with others, you can print that out and read it through. And we also have a donation link. If you'd care to support this work, then it's really, really appreciated. But like I said, we'll deal with that more towards the end in more detail. For right now, let's sit together. So, like I said, get in a comfortable position where you can just settle. And as I said before, there's no wrong way to do mindfulness. So whether you're sitting, whether you're lying down, whether you're standing, we can always be present with what the experience is. So you don't have to be in a double lotus. You don't have to do anything other than just be right where you are. Having said that, sometimes sleepiness can come, which is why it's always nice to sit in the morning. Hopefully we've all had a relatively good night's sleep. But if you do start getting sleepy, just stand up, and you can follow along everything we're going to do from any one of those positions, from lying down, from sitting, or from standing. So just check in with yourself and get into a position that feels supportive of your practice, to be alert, but also very open and very relaxed. So to start our body scan, our instant vacation, we're going to start checking in with how we feel right now, with the physical feeling of our body. And we're going to go to several different several different places in our body, and we're just going to draw our attention to those places. So the first place I'd like you to draw your attention is to your feet. And just check in for a second with how it feels to have feet right now in this moment. And it's important to remember that that feeling that you just checked in on is wordless. I can put words to that feeling, to the feeling of I can say my feet are tingly or warm or whatever else they are, but that's a different experience than the actual direct felt experience. The wordless just knowing of what it feels like to have feet for you right now in this moment. And the more we can just directly connect with experience, the less we have to narrate it, the less we have to talk about it mentally, but just feel the experience of being in a body right now, the more we can directly connect with. And so as you're checking into your feet, just let them relax. Just let the feet be totally open, soft, no holding, no tension. And as I'm speaking, it might be useful to just keep taking really big, deep breaths. Every time we breathe in, nice, cool, healing breath. And every time we breathe out, just trying to let a little more tension go, be a little bit more open, a little bit more relaxed. So now bringing the attention to the calves, to the knees, to the thighs. And again, just take a moment to connect with what it feels like for you to have legs in this moment. What is the direct, wordless felt experience of having legs right now for you? Now we're going to let our legs relax. So, again, with a big, deep breath, we're just going to let all the tension out of the legs. Let the legs be totally soft and heavy, totally loose, no holding. Just open and existing in this moment. Now we bring the attention to the pelvis, to the guts, to the belly. Just let all of that go. Just big belly breaths. Let it all be loose. No holding at all, just letting everything be soft, heavy, everything being okay just as it is. Just letting the experience of having a belly in this moment be exactly what it is, just perfect in itself. Loose and free and open. Now bringing the attention to the lower back, Relaxing the lower back. Bringing the attention to the chest. Oh, letting the chest relax, be open and loose. Bringing the attention to the shoulders. Letting the shoulders go loose, totally soft. Bringing the attention to the arms, to the hands. Just letting us check in on how it feels to have hands in this moment. And just really paying attention to the feeling, not the words, not the narratives, just the knowing of handness, of having hands right now, having arms. Letting all of that go, letting the hands relax. No need to do anything, no need to be anything. We can just be free and open right now. Now relaxing the neck, letting the neck be loose and open. Relaxing the jaw and the mouth, relaxing the cheeks, nose, all the little muscles around the eyes. Relaxing the eyebrows, relaxing the forehead, relaxing the scalp. Now just take a moment to what it feels like to be in a relaxed body. Have no tension, to just be present physically in this space. If any tension has come up, any tightness, any holding, that's okay. It's just part of the experience of the moment. Just breathe into it. Take a deep breath and let the tension go. Just be aware of the open, relaxed body breathing. It's the experience of existing wherever you are. There's nothing to do and no one to do it. Now that we've practiced relaxing the body, we're going to practice relaxing the mind. And the way we relax the mind is we give it something to rest on. We're going to rest our attention on the breath, specifically on the first contact point of the breath and the body. So that might be the edge of the nose. That might be lips or the mouth. Wherever the breath first meets, we're going to put our attention on that contact point. And one of the beautiful things about the mind is that it can't concentrate on two things simultaneously. So whenever we feel a lot of mental activity, whenever we feel a lot of thoughts or emotions, it can be very calming to just check in with the breath, settle in with the next breath. So what we're going to do is see if we can be totally present with one breath. So as the breath first enters the body, we're going to see if we can really just pay attention to the experience of breathing, to be really present with just the physical feeling of breath coming into the body from that first contact where it first comes in, feeling the air come in and filling the lungs, feeling the breath taper off as our lungs become full. Just that break, that moment of silence and holding the breath in the body. And feeling the start of the breath exit the body as it all flows out, as the breath totally vacates the body and the body is empty. Again, a moment of stillness, and feeling the next breath start to come in. So let's see for just the next few moments if we can be totally present with a single breath. If just from one full breath in and one full breath out, we can keep our mind present with just the physical experience of breathing, right at that very refined, pinpointed area of the first contact point of the breath. If you find that difficult, that's okay. See if you can just practice for even half a breath, just the in breath. If you can keep your mind totally present, totally centered on the feeling of breathing and nothing else, or just one in breath. So now we're going to sit together for a time, about 20 minutes. We're going to see if we can just be present with our body breathing. Again, just trying to really dial in and be present with each half breath, each full breath, with multiple breaths. But just as important as being with the breath is finding the breath. So if as you're sitting, you do find thoughts come up, that's okay. That's totally fine. That's what the mind does. Just for the next few minutes, let's see if we cannot run away with those thoughts. If you find a lot of thinking, a lot of emotion, that's okay. You can just let it be there. and see if you can bring your attention back to the breath on the next in breath. Every time, just being present with the feeling of breathing, being present with the next breath. You might be hearing sounds from your environment, from other people in your house, or from outside. Maybe you can hear the background noise from the sounds that are happening around me. Really good practice of sound meditation is just letting those be. If there were a cat in the room or a bird in the room, it wouldn't care too much about what was being said or what was happening. It would just be present. Let's see if we can practice a little acceptance of sound. If you're already having thoughts or you're finding your mind is going a million miles a second or to a bunch of different places, or you've started planning or remembering, again, that's totally fine. Sometimes it can be very skillful to just let the mind be open and to run where it wants. Often we can gain a lot of insights through this practice and process things that are inside of us. It can also be very, very skillful to practice being present with the breath. Practice letting the mind just be open, clear. Just keep drawing the attention back to body breathing. As we sit, we often feel a need arise to change something. Maybe we want to readjust our body or close the window just for the last few minutes of our sit. See if we can practice just letting absolutely everything in the world just be the way it is. The next 5 minutes, we don't have to change it. We don't have to do anything about it. We can just practice cultivating acceptance, compassion for everything inside of us, everything in the world around us. Settle into things being as they are right now and just openly holding them without needing to change, without needing them to be different. Sometimes even our wanting things to be different doesn't have to be different. Accept all things, all experience. About to hear me ring a bell. I'm gonna ring it 3 times. Wherever your mind has been for the last 20 minutes, see if you just settle into the experience of sound. See if you can be present with just the direct experience of hearing the bell as it changes from moment to moment until it fades away. So please feel free to take some deep, energizing breaths. Open your eyes and come back to the room. Come back from your instant vacation. So, I wanted to have an opportunity for an interactive portion. So, to give folks a chance to talk about how that was for you or what came up for you. If you have any questions on your practice, please feel free to unmute your mic, and I'd be really interested to hear how that went for you.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Ryan. It was difficult, but great. I definitely felt very aligned with all the things you were saying. Every time you said something, I was like, yep, that's kind of exactly what's going on. I had a really hard time, I had a very challenging Vipassana when I did my first Vipassana. So I'm still like, I have a lot of fear around like body scanning. And it was just really nice, gentle reintroduction to it. So I felt great about that. And I do feel like I had a beautiful instant vacation. So thank you so much, man.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else want to share their experience? So I'll share a little bit more about fear and strong emotions. Something the Buddha is said to have said is the metaphor of what he called the second arrow or the second strike. And this comes from the core idea of his pedagogy of the Dharma, which is a Pali word, which is a language that was spoken in India at that time, that means the truth of the way things are. And as someone who grew up in Texas, who had a very negative experience, a lot of emotional and physical violence and trauma around people that felt very strongly about Christian pedagogies, I was very reticent to join anything that felt like an organized religion or anything that felt like an organized belief system. But what I really love about that word is it's not good, it's not bad, it's just the way it is. The Dharma is the truth of the way things are. And so our job as meditators, as practitioners, is to come into closer alignment and knowledge of what that is, of what the truth of the way things are is. The Dalai Lama very famously said that if science and Buddhism ever disagree, it is Buddhism that will have to change. Because what science is a study of how can we know what is happening around us? How can we be present with that truth? And so the second noble truth is that the reason we suffer is because we want something different than the truth of the way things are. If I have a lot of emotional or mental attachment to gravity not being real, and I put something very precious to me on an edge and it falls off and it breaks, I'm going to suffer because I had an expectation that it wouldn't fall, or maybe I had an expectation that it wouldn't break, or I had an expectation that things will last forever, and nothing does. Everything is impermanent. Everything is always changing. And so the more we hold on to an idea of how we think things should be, or how we think we should be, or how we think other people should be, and our expectation does not align with the truth of the way we are, the way others are, the way the environment is, then we will suffer. And so why that practice, which is called Anapana, for those of us that have sat with dear Goenkaji, uh, that mindfulness of the breath, the more closely you pay attention to just that feeling of breathing, the less room in your mind you have for worry and doubt and judgment and shame and anxiety and hatred and fear and all the rest of it. And I'm also not saying those are bad things. Those are part of the body's radar to being sensitive to the world around us. And I'm also not saying that means you should be apathetic or disconnected or dismiss the pain you feel about certain things. But the subtlety is, can you be present with the fact that those experiences are happening without running away with a narrative around them? So a good example that a lot of the monastics practice is hunger. So I can, right now I haven't had breakfast, I feel a little hungry. But what is the narrative that I associate with that direct felt sense of hunger? Am I mad about it? Am I upset about it? Do I blame someone? Do I say a narrative, oh, I don't take care of myself enough, I'm such a bad person, or oh, somebody distracted me and I wasn't able to eat last night and now I'm really hungry. And so these feelings that I'm associating as bad and needing to change, I now have a narrative where I'm exporting that badness to other people or myself. Judgment, should, starts coming up. Or I can just let the experience exist without putting a narrative on it. Being hungry isn't a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just an experience. Right now, it's like this. And I find that ability in times of high stress, in times of high trauma, when you feel like the world around you is collapsing or your internal world is collapsing and it's very difficult to go on or it's very difficult to be with what you're experiencing. Just stop for a minute, take a few deep breaths, relax the body. Usually where the body goes, the mind will follow. So we often hold that tension in a physical way somewhere in our body, whether that is a clenching of the gut or of the shoulders or of the jaw or of the eyebrows. Somewhere you're holding that tension physically. And if you can just take a few moments, relax the body, let the mind's attention rest on the next breath, you can create a lot of space for yourself in very difficult times. So, any other questions about practice or anyone else want to share their experience?
I'll share. Thank you for doing this. It was awesome. I feel like every time I meditate, I usually find myself, I get so relaxed that I usually feel sleepy. And I actually think I fell asleep for a little bit, but I'm not actually sure. But I wasn't tired, so I don't know why that happens to me, but I feel like it's happened to me a couple times recently when I've been meditating. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to avoid that, but, yeah, that's what I experienced this morning. But I did find it very relaxing in general, and I really liked the, like, checking in with each of like, each part of my body was my favorite part of it.
Yeah, if I think one of the superpowers that we get from a mindfulness practice is a greater sensitivity. We're very often asked in our society to not pay attention to ourselves or to fix something. You know, oh, you're tired, you need to take an upper, or you're too stressed, you need to take a downer or a relaxer. You need to, you know, I need some coffee, I need a cigarette, I need to smoke, I need to drink, I need to watch TV, I need to escape my experience. I shouldn't. It feels bad to be me right now. I need to run away from that and fix it. And if the more we sit, the more sensitive we get to our own experiences. So if your body is telling you that you need more sleep, maybe you should try get more sleep. Maybe getting 9, 10 hours of sleep for the next day or two might be exactly what your mind and your body needs. I sleep a lot personally. I'm a borderline narcoleptic. So I think that's totally okay. And another real gift of this practice is, what do you do with the experiences that you have? So your body is telling you that you're having sleepiness, and sometimes it's skillful to be able to sleep, but sometimes we don't have that space. Our commitments, our requirements, the things we're doing are not allowing us to have rest. And so that can be a really important part of practice too, is how do I deal with sleepiness? How do I hold sleepiness in a non-reactive way? I do feel like sleeping right now, but I'm just going to, right now it's like this. I don't need to go to sleep. I can just be with the feeling of wanting to sleep without doing it, just like I can be with the feeling of wanting to eat without eating. And there's no right answer there. Right, that's again, the cool thing is every day you will tell yourself what you need, and you will tell yourself what is best for you. And our only job is to listen. And so I strongly recommend we sat for 20 minutes today. If you can sit for 20 minutes every day, just in the morning. I mean, again, like I because I fall asleep. Like when it's late, I just instantly go out. So it's very difficult for me to sit at night, which is when a lot of meditation groups meet. So I really appreciate morning practice for that reason, because yeah, it's easier for me to be awake. But whenever it is, just sit, even for 5 minutes. Even, I mean, obviously, none of us are traveling a lot these days, I hope. But you know, if you're about to join a meeting, for example, if you're about to join a call, if you're about to interact with someone, you're about to go downstairs and make breakfast, and your roommates or someone else in your house is, or you're going to take a walk or whatever it is. Whenever those times of transition are about to come, Just take just 5 breaths, 20 breaths before you start. Just relax the body, and that can really open up a lot. Sometimes you'll see, if for those that know me, you'll see me do it while I'm in a conversation with a difficult person. Like in the moment, I'll be like, okay, I hear you. And then I'll have a little bit more space to go in. So there are a lot of mental superpowers that we get from this practice.
Thanks.
You, Sophia or Roxy or Teresa, just giving the floor to you to say anything if you feel called to. And also, if you don't want to say anything, but you want to just message me in the chat, that's totally cool too. And you can tell me whether, like, I'm happy to read your thoughts, or I'm happy to just keep it internal, if you just want to indicate that.
Okay, I'll just say something really quick. I felt it. The beginning part was really nice, and I also have been doing a lot of meditations this week, and I do gravitate way more to I actually go to an ashram once a week, and I go to meditations that have a bit of getting you, like a guided meditation, getting you into an alpha state. So whether that's through chanting or the guided meditation, and then when there's silence. And I think a lot of times when I did an ayahuasca retreat, actually, I realized that language is human made, it's cultural made on, and you can't connect really to the higher realms of the spiritual realm if you're constantly talking, because language is the mind. And so I thought that was nice when you were focusing on the feeling and of the experience and getting us into the body rather than constantly analyzing. I just came back from 2 ashrams in Vietnam and 1 in Bali. So that was, it was really nice. Thank you. But I started thinking about things and I lost it. So it was a little, but oh well. Anyways, thank you.
Great. I read a book once that had a metaphor of a stream of water, and that being like the thought stream. And in the same way that you can kind of chop your hand through a stream of water and experience a momentary break, but then the stream just keeps on coming, that's what it's like when you first meditate. Or for folks that aren't as familiar with having a non-narrative experience. And I thank you very much for bringing that up, Araxi, because that was actually, for me, that was one of the biggest shifts in my practice. And I was sitting for literally years before I understood that idea that you are not your mind, that there's a thinking part, an analyzing part, an ego-driven part, right? This Cartesian, I think, therefore I am, that I, as like a Western philosophy student, was 100% brought in. Who else would I be other than this idea of myself, other than my thoughts, other than my analysis and my reactions and my judgments, right? That's who I am. When in truth, that's not who you are. You have a core awareness of what is happening right now that is separate from your interpretation of it, that is separate from your ego mental formations, that we can just be present with an experience, with the experience of having feet, or the experience of taking the next breath, or the sound or the smells. What Eugene Cash, who was one of my main teachers, called the direct felt experience of life. And for a long time, I was like, what the hell does he mean by that? Like, I get it, buddy. I have feet. Thanks. And it took me a really long time to realize that it wasn't the knowing, the abstractualization of, I understand the theory or the abstract that I possess feet and that I exist, but a wordless direct connection of just having an experience, not needing to think about it, not needing to process it, just being with it. And that's something else Roxy mentioned, and just FYI, the tradition that I've been trained in is the Theravada, which is a southeastern Asian tradition, more the Thai tradition, and that is, yeah, a lot of different cultures. The Dharma has shown up in many different ways in Japanese Zen and Tibetan Buddhism in Mongolia and in India. And the Theravada tends to be very unadorned, unornamented. There's very little chanting, very little like formal, if you ever sit at a Zen center, that, like everybody has to enter by order of seniority, and they're very like, or like Goenka also comes from a very ordered lineage. And Theravada is called a forest tradition because it was primarily practiced by monks in the Thai forest that would just go off on their own and just be present with nature, and just be with the experience. And I've always related pretty strongly to that. So that kind of informs my practice and how I frame things. So thank you very much. So would any final shares?
I have a question.
Please.
So we're kind of talking about how language impacts the mind, and we're talking a little bit about science too. And we have this understanding now of the way observation changes phenomena. So how do you balance like the instruction of meditation with the understanding that the language itself can take the practitioner out of the sensation and into the thinking mind?
Great question. I will again pull from Goenkaji. He has a anecdote that those of you who've sat on a Vipassana retreat might remember, about eating the food. So he says one area of experience is seeing the restaurant from the outside, and the restaurant has to have, otherwise how would you know it's a restaurant? So it does need to tell you, like, we're a restaurant, we're a great restaurant, where you have these rare specials, it's all great. And then you go in, or maybe you look in the window and you see people eating the food, and they look like they're having a great time. They're smiling, they're laughing, they're sucking it down. Or you can even go in and see the menu and see all these descriptions, and you can order the food, and it can be right in front of you. But none of those things are eating the food. Reading the review of the restaurant is not eating the food. Seeing other people eating the food is not eating the food. Looking at the menu is not eating the food. Only eating the food is eating the food. And so the words I'm saying are not the practice. They are not awareness or increasing awakening. I can only point you to that place. This is something else I really deeply love and respect about the Dharma and about Buddhist practice, is I am not the font of it's not like through me that or through any teacher for that matter, that you will find awakening. All any teacher can do is share or guide or point, but the work must always be done within each of us, within each of ourselves. And so those words that get you to the place are useful as a vehicle, but they're not the destination. The destination is the practice, is sitting with the knowing of what this next breath feels like for you, of what your internal experience is in this moment, and how you can welcome it and be with it and hold it and learn from it. That's the practice. So great question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's very I just climbed a mountain recently. It's very similar. It's like, people can bring you tea, they can show you the right path, they can maybe even give you some water, but ultimately it's you who has to climb the mountain like one step at a time. And climbing the mountain is climbing the mountain. Thinking about climbing the mountain is not climbing the mountain. Being worried about climbing the mountain is not climbing the mountain. Being afraid about what's going to happen is not climbing the mountain. Just putting one foot in front of the other is climbing. So I think that's a very good reminder for myself about meditation.
Telling people what a great mountaineer you are, not climbing the mountain. Cool. Well, I really hope this was useful for y'all. Thank you so much for sitting together today. In the chat, if anyone feels called to make a donation, yeah, I think somebody mentioned earlier that a lot of their event planning and similarly, I work in education doing teacher training. So this is definitely an interesting time for our economy. And I understand, you know, people have different levels of where they're at, but our Venmo, if you look us up on Venmo, is KindSF. And please feel free to contribute there. Or if you go to kindus.org, you will find a link to our PayPal, if that is easier for you. I believe we're doing this once a week. So if you found this useful, if you'd like to sit together next Saturday, I will be very, very happy to sit with y'all and get the word out if there are other people that you think this might be useful for. Again, there are a lot of Dharma teachers out there. There are a lot of people offering space and doing really beautiful work. I think the main thing that shapes my practice is dealing with pretty tough circumstances, both internally or externally. And I think that's right now, I think a lot of people are feeling a lot of anxiety. So I really invite you all to sit this week to really practice at least 20 minutes every day, whenever you can, or even just those little micro mindfulness, even a single breath a day. If you take one mindful breath every day for the next week, you will be in a different space than otherwise. So again, my name is Ryan McCarthy, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity to sit with y'all today. So thank you so much for the time. So if there are no final questions, I'll be here for a minute, but otherwise, thank you so much, everybody. Take good care. Sophia, Teresa, I assume you guys are just vacant, not waiting. Great. All right.